Hello, my beautiful friends. I'm going to do something a little bit different today. We're going to talk about research and discovery and good shit, right? We're going to talk about how do you know when something's good? The internet is a sea of just stuff. Everybody can post stuff. If you have a computer, you have a little bit of wherewithal, you can post whatever, which means there's a lot out there. So, how do you know? How do you differentiate between the good stuff and the crappy stuff, right? So, these are things that everybody has learned in college, but not everybody has gone to college. So I just wanted to kind of put it out there. How do we research spiritual stuff, right? And I was inspired by to do this because I watched the Next Level. I watch a lot of different things, but one of the channels that I sometimes watch is the Next Level Soul podcast, and it's Alex Ferrari is the host. Apparently, he's an independent filmmaker. I never heard of him. Sorry, Alex. But he has lots of different speakers on there, and a lot of them don't resonate with me. But this particular one did resonate with me because she's a NASA scientist. If you watch the channel, you know I've also had grants with NASA. I'm an academic, so it is so refreshing, and I think so poignant and spirit led that this video fell into my lap right now because I've been going through the past week, not a struggle because I think I'm beyond like the speaker. I'm beyond caring really what the academic community thinks about what I think about the universe. But it does make it hard to kind of step out or step into my power, my spiritual power, because, you know, I'm an academic. And so, but I thought while watching her interview, and I'm going to post it below, she is an engineer for NASA. She's part of the Mars. I know, like, you probably don't follow all this, but here's the quick and dirty. Our goal as a country is to get people onto the moon, and they want to have a woman be the first one to step out this time. To do some 3D printing of things that are on the moon so that we can colonize the moon, so that we can get to Mars, because we can't travel directly to Mars as humans because of our body. But if we did a layover, at LAX/the moon, then you could then go from the moon to Mars to colonize Mars. And I'm not all that fond of that idea, but I wonder, the little part inside of me wonders, like, do we have to colonize Mars? Is something going, have we trashed the Earth so much that we need to go to another planet because we've not done a good job with the one that we have? I don't know. But anyway, that's the work she's doing, and it's legit work. It's out there. You can look at NASA's plans. You can see that this is the plan that they have. Anyway, she wrote a book, which I'm going to link her information below. Actually, I'm going to link the podcast below because I want Alex Ferrari to get the credit. And in the show links, in the show comments, are links to her things. And it was just so refreshing to hear her. First of all, she has this amazing story. She's from Pakistan. Pakistani girls are not, risen up to be anything but housewives. And she broke free. She had to go through an arranged marriage, which is the custom there. She broke free from that. She broke through all these amazing barriers. And she's a scientist at NASA, and she's working on this the future of humanity project. And we don't know why. Maybe it's just curiosity that we want to live on Mars, but I feel like it's a little bit more sinister than that. But anyway, she's part of these spaces, but she's also very out in the open about her spirituality, about starseeds, about our really what we all talk about, which is that we are one light, one love. We are all connected by one source, and we manifest in different ways, but we are able to see across different planes. And she has some really logical explanations about holographs and sort of the thin veils that separate existences, the manifestation of existences. So how do we know that she's legit, right? How do we know that she's more legit than, let's say, Lucy Joe over here who just has a podcast? Well, there's nothing inherently to say that she is more legit than Lucy Joe, but that she's willing to step out with her credentials and say what she says, she's taking a great risk, right? Because in the scientific community, the way that science works, you do research two ways. One is you do primary and secondary. So primary research is you go out and interview people, you go out and, run an experiment, test the water, you get the results, you analyze the direct results from the direct source. Secondary research is when you go and you look at the research of others. So you go and let's say I've done research on the water. You look at my research on the water. You look at Susie's research on the water. You look at Joe's research on the water. And then you make you make commentary about all the research that's been done. You've not done the water samples yourself, but you're looking at the people who've done the water samples and then you're writing about it. So, and then you're asking for further research, in the field. And most scientific research is governed through grants. And grants are funding that you get mostly from the government. And there are very strict rules about the money and how it can be used. And when the government's paying the bill, they have requirements that they set forth, and you have to follow the rules. So that the way the scientific community has always worked is you do your research, you publish your findings in a peer-reviewed journal, which means that you write an article and other people in that community look it over, make sure it's not bupkus, and then it gets published. And what's interesting about that is that the purpose of the publishing, in theory, is so that then I can take that research, duplicate that experiment, and then keep working and go toward a new goal using the research you've done. However, the competition for funding is so competitive that the way that journal articles are written, they're written making it nearly impossible for you to duplicate the experiment. Because if you can duplicate the experiment and you want to look at a new angle on it, and I can duplicate the experiment because I did it, and I want to look at a new angle, now we're both competing for funding. And I want to get the funding. So I'm going to make it, I'm going to put in there what I have to by law because you gave me the money, but I'm not going to make it so easy for you because I want the money and I don't want to compete with you for the money. So trailblazing work back in the day in the field of chemistry by Jean-Claude Bradley, who unfortunately, to the world's greatest dismay, unearthed himself, partly because of the struggle he had in the scientific community. He was talking about open notebook science before there was a movement called open educational resources or open source. So he was publishing his journal articles in organic chemistry on blogs and wikis so that others could take that research and build off of it. And he was doing projects that the government doesn't care about. Malaria, arsenic in water. Really, the government and pharmaceuticals, the folks that give out grants, they want research about the things that they're interested in promoting. Curing malaria in third world countries, nobody cares about, right? Sadly, but that's the truth. So Jean-Claude was doing research on that, publishing those findings, going around to the Chemical Society and presenting, like, this is how we should do research. We should share, we should be open, we should, because we can solve the world's problems greater if we can reduce the amount of time, because it takes years from the time that you get your funding to the time that you've done your research to the time you've published. It is years before findings come out about a certain thing. So Jean-Claude was about reducing that time so that we can solve problems more quickly. Unfortunately, science wasn't ready for him. It's more ready for him now, but even still, we still have barriers. Another, Aaron Swartz, an amazing guy, one of the starters of Reddit, also unearthed himself. He got caught, and this is right about the time that I was at MIT. He was in the closet uploading academic articles to the public domain because, in his opinion, and he was right about this, taxpayers have already paid for this research. In our taxes, we pay for the money that goes to the National Endowment of the Arts, the Humanities, and National Science Foundation. Our tax dollars already go to that, so we shouldn't have to then pay to look at the research when it's published in journals. And journals are things that you can't get at, at 7-Eleven. They're not magazines that are in a regular store. You have to go through a library, an academic library, to get them, and those libraries have to pay an exorbitant access fee to get these journals. And Aaron's position was you shouldn't have to. You've already paid for them. That research should be free, and it should be out there. But it was at the beginning of sort of, the leaking. What is that called? The idea that you could leak information, right? And so they wanted to make an example out of Aaron, and Aaron didn't want to do jail time, so Aaron unearthed himself. So we have these two brilliant minds who unearthed themselves because our processes for sharing information were so limited at the times in which they lived. And, so there's a great risk for academics to talk about sharing light and love, sharing information, because there's, and it might just be criticism from your colleagues, but it could be as big as jail time, like as in the case of Aaron, or ridicule from your professional community, as was the case with Jean-Claude. So, so it makes it harder for other academics to step out. And then you have this brave woman who's like, you know what? I'm a NASA engineer. I'm going to write a book during the pandemic. I'm going to talk about, and she says, like, she has such great statements in this thing. She's like, I've tried to walk away a few times, because if it comes to a choice between NASA and my spirit, I'm going with spirit. And NASA has kept her because she's, this brilliant, engineer, but also because, like, she is the one person who can say the stuff, because everybody knows that she's the person who can say the stuff. So they kind of come to her and they're like, I saw my grandfather when I was little. And, and she's just a great ambassador of light and love, and just, but also has the technical expertise, right? Now, how is that different than, Susie Joe down the street? Well, it's not, because Susie Joe may have a completely legitimate experience also, and so we don't want to discount Susie Joe's experience. But what we can say about, the NASA engineer is that she's putting everything at risk in a very tight professional community to say what it is she says. Not that Susie Joe isn't at risk. I'm not saying that. But, there's value to, because she's gone to college. She knows how research is done. She knows what evidence needs to look like. She knows what people have the capacity to understand in their very limited human minds. So she is very well aware of all of the pieces. And Susie is very aware of her piece. And she may not be able to analyze it. So it's worth it to read both. But then you have to use discernment about what you want to believe. You can believe both. It's not an either or. You can believe Susie Joe's experience and believe the NASA engineer. But we also know that there are charlatans out there. Now, what's the likelihood that the NASA engineer is going to be a charlatan? Very, very low, because she has a very public job, right? I mean, she's one of the people responsible for us getting to the moon to get to Mars. So she is on a team that is going to propel us into the future, right? So her risk is greater, right? Like, if we don't believe Susie Joe, like, if we don't believe her, we just don't believe her, and it'll make her feel bad, and we don't want to do that. But, she's not putting her whole career at risk. Or she might be. I mean, we don't know what Susie Joe's job is, but let's say let's say she's not a NASA engineer. However, Susie Joe may have a perspective or an interpretation that really resonates with a certain kind of person, and may be, like, really a good perspective. What I worry about, if you follow the channel, you know that Alicia sent me down this rabbit hole to watch this twin flame thing about this. I don't even want to say their names. Like, this couple that are a cult. They're not a cult because people can leave, but they're a cult. They're the Charles Mansons of the 2024. Like, how do you differentiate between the sweet Susie Joe and this power couple that's on this power trip to take your money and have you get arrested for stalking? Like, how do you differentiate between all of the information? Because there's so much information, and there are so many people out here who are willing to sell you happiness for whatever it is you're willing to pay, whether it's money or your attention. I don't think this power couple is actually about the money. I think they're about the power. What is the NASA engineer's motivation in giving this information? Well, she doesn't need the money. She's getting a sweet paycheck from NASA. I'm telling you, she's an engineer for NASA. She's getting paid well. Her motivation is to share light and love. What are the motivations of this power couple? I think it's for power. What about Susie Joe? Is it just for fame and fortune, or she just really believes it? Look at motivation. Why is the person sharing the information? So that's step number one. What is the motivation? What's the end game for this person? Two, you want to kind of discern their biography. It's okay if Susie Joe is a housewife. I guess we don't call them that anymore. I don't know. I'm old. Leave me alone. Susie Joe's a housewife, and she saw an alien in her backyard, and she's convinced that she saw an alien. She took a picture. It came out blurry. We really can't tell. What is her motivation, and do we believe her? Is she just off her rocker? You are the only person who can decide whether that information resonates with you. You listen to the story, be objective, and then just decide. Now, if 6 of her neighbors also saw this being, or there are reports in the town, like I'm thinking about the Las Vegas incident where the officer got it on his body cam, there's a little more legitimacy to that story when a lot more people have seen it. But that doesn't discount that individuals see things too. So, really use your discernment. If somebody says they're an expert in something, that's different than a person telling you a personal tale about something. And if a person says they're an expert in something, question those credentials. Where did they go to college? Where have they worked? What have they done? Have they been discredited in their field? And the discrediting in their field, you want to be careful about, because sometimes people are discredited because they go against the mainstream and they're not pulling the party line. So there are different podcasters that have guests on that have been fired from like Area 51 and stuff like that. And then you think, well, what is their motivation? And, what did they have access to? And even though they've been discredited by the government, perhaps they still have something important to say. So just look at their credentials, look at what their motivation is, and then look at the information they provide. And I always say it's just like Wikipedia and artificial intelligence. Wikipedia is a great start. We've never let college students use Wikipedia because we don't let students use encyclopedias when they write research papers, right? But what's great about Wikipedia is at the bottom, the best part of Wikipedia, because Wikipedia is written by the masses. So let's say, you're doing a paper on Mary Shelley and the book Frankenstein. You go on, you look up Wikipedia, it gives you some information. It's pretty good, but the community sort of polices that information. So I could be a shenanigans person, and I could go in and I could just mess things up in there, and then it will just take a few days for people to realize I've put some naughty stuff in there before it gets fixed. So on any given day, at any given time, you could be looking at wrong information. So the pearl of Wikipedia is at the bottom. There are primary resources, articles, research that's been done, videos, things like that. That's where the golden tickets are for Wikipedia. So look at that stuff, but it gives you at least a starting place. And I feel the same about AI. Google Chat, Bard changed their name. I can't remember what they changed it to. Google Bard, whatever it is, ChatGPT, whatever. You get like an introduction to a topic, but remember that AI is predictive. So it scans the entire internet for your topic and gives you back the most likely reply. So if I say peanut butter and, it's going to fill in jelly. But if we remove the word jelly from vernacular, from language, then it's going to go to the next thing, which is peanut butter and honey, or whatever it is. So, it's not accurate. There are no sources. I think Google Bard, whatever it's called now, I can't remember what it's called now. They give you some resources to look at, like in a Google search. But just remember that AI is not a Google search. It is predictive. So, it's a good starting place to give you some background about a topic, but you should always do your own research. You should be looking at quality resources. A really great example that I did with my students, not all the pieces exist anymore, and I will leave you with this. When we teach academic literacy skills, we teach about websites and how to know if a website is legit, right? So to be a government website, a .gov, and to be a .edu, you have to prove that you're one of those things, that you're government or you're a school. You don't have to do that for any other thing. So .com, .org, .biz, you don't have to prove that you're nonprofit to be a .org. So address is very important, just as it is in geography. You come to my town and you have a certain address, you are in the hood. I live in the mountain town. I actually live in the hood. My street is the hood, which I'm very proud of. Address means something, right? So it's .gov, it's .edu. Those two, have been vetted. Anything after the edu, however, is not vetted. And that's because faculty maintain academic freedom. and they can write whatever they want. If the college provides pages to everybody and they give you a page, you can write anything you want. And there was a case, this guy retired now. There was this, I can't remember what school it was, and I don't want to say the wrong college, but it was like Northwestern, one of those kind of schools. And there was a professor who said that the Holocaust was a hoax. And he had all this information on his website, and it was on his college page. And the college tried to get him to take it down, and they went to court. And because it was his personal page offered to all faculty at the college lost, and he got to keep it up. And then the day he retired, they took it down. So just be careful even with EDU pages. Government pages, all before and after the gov, have to be approved by the government. So be careful of addresses. Then look at the content. And the exercise that I used to do with my students is I would have them, the scenario was they were helping their son or daughter or brother or sister with a paper on Martin Luther King. And they had to look up 5 websites that would help them with the research. And the first one that would come up would be martinlutherking.org, which is now defunct. And that page, when you look at it, looks very academic. But when you dig deep into it, you learn that it's actually authored by Stormfront, which is a KKK website. Infuriating as a teacher. But it did serve, and then I go through a whole thing about how you can look at the history through the Wayback Machine and Internet Archives, how you can look at and see when the website was first created. It did look like a white supremacist website, but then over time they got a really good webmaster who made it look academic, and for a person in 6th grade, it looked completely legit. It wasn't until you dug into the information into this website that you were like, what? Like, this isn't the story about Martin Luther King that I'm familiar with. So look at the information. If things smell bad, figure out where the rotting fruit is, right? Like, if things don't look legit or you have questions, your intuition will tell you a lot, right? If you're looking at something and you're like, this does not sound right to me, pause and go look it up, right? Pay attention to addresses. Know that we are visual people. And so if you have a good programmer, a good webmaster, somebody who's good at at design, you can make poo look like Shinola. You can make it look like a crystal palace. You have to be the discerning body. And so when we look at YouTube, even when you look at my videos, like, make sure that I'm not full of shit. Make sure that the people that you watch bring light and love, good information, and question everything. It's okay to question things. You're not, like, oh, I don't want to hurt BRG's feelings. Go ahead. You're not hurting my feelings by going down and saying, you know what? I don't think that rune means that. I think the rune means this. It might be. And then you'll tell me, and then I'll look it up, and then we'll both look it up and have a conversation. And wow, we've both learned something amazing. Don't buy what people sell you, whether they're selling it for power or whether they're selling it for money. Do your discernment, do your homework, because what you put in is what you give out. And if you're feeding yourself garbage, you're giving out garbage. So we want to make sure that we fill ourselves with all the best information. On that note, I am wishing you all the very best in light and love. Be careful out there. I'm going to link everything for the Next Soul podcast down below, and to the amazing engineer at NASA, whose name I cannot pronounce, and I don't want to be disrespectful and pronounce it wrong. So I will see you soon. Be well. Take care. Bye-bye.